So this will be a continuation of my series, What Exactly is LeBron James the GOAT of? And this will be volume 2 as he continues to put on a master class on how star players should leverage their position in the league as far as creating business ventures for them as well as their close friends and family. And that truly is what LeBron James is the GOAT of. LeBron James has taken the blueprint of Irving Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Julius Erving, and even unknown players like Junior Bridgman, who recently passed away, who really is one of the first billionaires of the NBA without even using that title. But just getting back to the point, LeBron James have taken their previous models and has elevated the player business empowerment to a whole nother level. And in this segment, we're going to hear from a lot of insiders of how LeBron is currently in a cold war with Adam Silver over the business side of the game as he transitions and makes his way out of the league. And it all first started at last year's All-Star game when past legends spoke to all the NBA players as far as what kind of effort to put in the game, and it pretty much went ignored. And LeBron James in the next year's All-Star game actually showed up, but announced at the very last minute that he was not going to play. So there's definitely a cold war between LeBron James and Adam Silver. Again, we're always hearing about these expansion teams in Seattle and Las Vegas, and the price point is going to be very high. But again, in this segment, we're going to hear from quite a few insiders on them acknowledging that current NBA owners are not feeling LeBron, and they give some foresight to how the owners are really feeling about letting him in to their club. And just to add a little bit more nuance to it, Bloomberg had announced on January 16th that Maverick Carter, as well as Sovereign Money in the Middle East, was looking to form their own league. In the NBA later on that spring, Adam Silver actually announced that the league was collaborating with FIBA and other European partners to kind of orchestrate and create their own league, because around the world right now, a lot of countries with a lot of wealth are trying to rebrand themselves in the global stage. And we've seen a prime example of this in Qatar with the World Cup in 2022, and it was a success, make no mistake about it. The Middle East can host successfully a global event, and it was a way for them to brand their country in a different light. So there's a lot of sovereign money that's willing to invest in guys like LeBron James, Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, and perhaps create a different type of attraction that will allow different kinds of people to come into their country and build up sort of like a tourism economy, and at the same time rebrand themselves as far as what they are known for on the global stage. So there is a market for Maverick Carter with the cachet of a LeBron James to formulate a league overseas, and it being able to get a lot of funding to be successful. This blueprint is nothing new. It never gets talked about, but you fellas could look it up. When Magic Johnson in 1999 went to Sweden and played a couple of games for a professional team out there, then all of a sudden he gained ownership. And I'm pretty sure phone calls were made behind the scenes, and Magic Johnson quickly went right back to the NBA, and we never heard of him being out there in Sweden ever again. So all those marketing dollars to promote guys like Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, it's worth a lot. And make no mistake about it, the NBA does not want these guys to use all those marketing dollars for all those years and then translate it into a whole other entity that could possibly become competition. And in today's climate, especially with technology, the NBA does not want competition that has the cultural cachet of a LeBron James, and also the combination of sovereign money coming from the Middle East combined with the technology of streaming to broadcast any event globally. So there's a lot of concoctions that are creating this perfect storm that we're seeing right now. And LeBron James is slowly showing other players the possibility of just leveraging their cachet. It's not all about him just cashing in large checks. We've seen him make his return to Cleveland in 2014, and the net worth of the team jumped up by $500 million. But players like him are not able to benefit from that. But he's showing his other NBA brothers on how to leverage all of these things. So to start off this segment, we're going to hear from Stephen A. Smith and Brian Windhorst on some of the sentiments other NBA owners have for LeBron James. And again, keep in mind, LeBron James did cause a paradigm shift in the NBA which the narrative used to be players would have to stay loyal to a team until that exact franchise no longer needed that player. Then they would ship him off and the fan bases would eventually forget him. And after the 2010 decision to go to Miami, we've seen other players take control of their careers, and certain players were willing to leave even dollars on the table in order to control their destiny. But you guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
The internationalization, the globalization of the sport, the elevation of the team's value, etc. Nobody's taking less. Not these days, especially, and we all knew this was going to happen from the moment Steve Ballmer got the Clippers for $2 billion. Remember that? We all knew that was going to happen, okay? We all knew that the course that they on now, it was forthcoming. We knew that was coming. The issue for me with this story is that Michael Jordan had assistants. He had somebody in that room who wanted to help him. I can't think of anybody who is going to want to help LeBron James. That's what I'm saying. And that is a story that I think is going to percolate and is going to gain traction and momentum in the weeks and the months to come. That's my only point.
Now, Stephen A. Smith is saying stuff like this because he knows something on the inside when it comes to LeBron James and the player empowerment culture that has trickled down into the league. A lot of the owners are not happy about it, and they tried to kind of curve it in the last CBA in 2017, and players still ended up walking away from large contracts. And now we're seeing this new CBA that started in 2025. It has a lot of restrictive rules, and we don't really see a lot of players hitting free agency like they used to. But Molly Karam right here is going to ask a very interesting question.
I want to push back on one thing where I don't totally understand, so maybe the audience at home doesn't either. Why would the NBA, why would these owners make it difficult for a Michael Jordan or not want to help a LeBron James to become an owner when they've done so much for the game?
Well, help is a relative term.
That's right.
As far as, nobody's giving anybody a discount on something that's worth $7 billion that multiple people are bidding on.
So you're saying it's a financial issue?
It's just, I'm saying, the NBA can do 1,000 different things to honor and thank LeBron James. Giving equity is just not one of them. By the way, he understands that. He knows he's not going to be able to buy a $7 billion asset for $4 billion. He knows that. He knows he needs partners.
Yeah, it's a very tedious thing to buy an NBA team. And keep in mind, Michael Jordan took over 3 attempts for him to gain the Charlotte Bobcats. Which was considered almost a third-tier franchise. So LeBron and his team right now, they got their eyes set on Las Vegas and Seattle, which are major markets, even for the NBA. So that's going to almost be a tier 1 city team.
But it's going to be fascinating. And as far as the overseas thing, Molly, let me just say this about global basketball.
Okay.
There's a problem in global basketball. The biggest fan base is in China, but they have no players, okay? The NBA's tried for 25 years to get another Yao Ming. It hasn't happened. The best players are in Europe, but there's no money. These soccer teams, the top paid players in Europe make less than what NBA minimum guys make, okay? There's no money there. The players are there. There's no money there. The money is in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But they don't have players or people, and there's problems, politically and taking that money.
Once again, right there's the branding concept I spoke about earlier. A lot of the countries in the Middle East are willing to drop a lot of cash, not only on players, but on different entities that can come in and bring in a brand new attraction to the country so they can market themselves differently globally. And a lot of these countries with so-so reputations, they've realized that they can use sports as a way to soften their image around the world.
So there's a bit of a gap in global basketball that's interesting. And I think LeBron and Maverick and other people see it. And as we watch over the next 10 or 15 years, that's going to be interesting. And literally right now, the NBA is saying, we're going to maybe go to Europe. But as far as the idea that LeBron is going to be given any sort of assistance and any help, I would be surprised if that happened because these owners guard this equity like it's a family member.
Well,
and blood is thicker than water.
Hold on. Enough. Because see, here's my point. Wendy is not wrong, Molly, but respectfully, he's not getting to what your real question is. Okay? Because you're asking about somebody like Michael Jordan, somebody like LeBron James. with all that they've done for the game,
Yeah, it doesn't sit
why
with
would
me.
they not receive the report? Because it's a good old boys club at the end of the day. And if they don't like you and they don't like the way that you've done business with them, they don't have to let you in. Or if they don't like the impact or the resonance that you would bring to that room, they don't have to let you in. Certainly, Wendy's absolutely right. It's about the money first. It's about the equity first. It's about business first. But my point to you is that all things being equal, would you be as receptive to helping a LeBron compared to somebody else that never played the game, that's got billions of dollars and obviously can afford to own a franchise? Chances are you're going to give him resistance because you've seen the league have issues with LeBron despite all he's done for the league.
One of those issues, which is really not an issue, is LeBron James awakening the players to the business side of the game and taking control of his career and destiny. That did not sit well with a lot of owners, and it never gets talked about. A lot of these guys have lost a ton of money with these players changing teams. The jersey sales were definitely hitting different when guys like Paul George, James Harden, and many others, Kawhi Leonard, kept on asking for trades. And the owners really interpret that as the culture that has trickled down from LeBron making that decision to join the Miami Heat back in 2010. So financially, especially with the jersey sales, the owners definitely did take a hit.
In several instances, there are things that he has done that they've deduced is against their best interest as owners, as a business. They feel that way, whether it's accurate or not. They actually feel that way. And I know this because I have been told this by people who are in that room. And I'm sure Wendy has as well.
I'm not disputing what he's saying, Molly. What I would say is this. If LeBron retires in 3 years and in 4 years there is a bidding for an expansion team like Las Vegas or Seattle, and 4 ownership groups come in and they all offer the same amount of money, whatever it is, and LeBron is in one of those ownership groups, I think his incredible value and what he's brought to the NBA could be a tiebreaker. When it comes to controlling equity in the NBA, nothing is more sacred.
When Wendy points out equity and the importance of that, what do people in positions of power want to maintain? Power. And anything that compromises that, they're not going for. So in order for LeBron to happen, there would have to be a tsunami of public pressure, in my opinion, raining down upon the league and its board of governors in order for something to happen if all things were equal. Certainly they'll sit up there and point the finger in the direction of somebody else if they have the opportunity to do so, because there's not a lot of people inclined to help LeBron James because they don't feel, even though they know he's done a tremendous amount for the league, we all know this, there are other things that he has done that has not been helpful. And they know it, they feel it, and they point the finger at him for it. I brought up the slam dunk contest. They talk about that. We all brought up the lackadaisical effort that they put forth for the All-Star game on Sunday for All-Star weekend. You think they don't look at LeBron James? Larry Bird and Dr. J and them come in and talk to the team last year, and they think that they've touched the pulse of the players and all of this stuff. And then they say, you know what? LeBron just gave a side eye to everybody else. And the next thing you know, they went out there and allowed 400 points damn near to be scored, putting forth no effort whatsoever. It may not have been his fault, but they didn't view it that way.
Yeah.
And because they didn't view it that way, those are the kind of elements, those increments of things, those incremental things that could be problematic when you're asking for equity in a prestigious sports brand.
No,
that is the bottom line.
I believe LeBron will have a big future in basketball after he finishes playing.
So do I.
I don't exactly know how it will play out, but I would invest with him. I don't have that kind of money, but I would invest with him because I believe in where he's going.
So would I.
You have that money.
And the landscape is perfect for him to actually branch off on his own and create his own entity. The market is there. The dollars are there. Once again, a lot of countries in the Middle East are trying to rebrand themselves. And if you look at how things played out in Qatar in the 2022 World Cup, they're willing to throw the dollars out there in order to make that happen.
He deserves it, Molly. Let's be clear to end this subject.
Yeah.
LeBron James deserves to be an owner of an NBA franchise. There is no question about that for what he has done for the game. But there are people in positions of power he has alienated because of the influence they know he has with other players and how they've acted. They point the finger at him and some of the things that he has done in a way that he has handled it to sort of snub his nose at the business. They are resentful of it. They have not forgotten it, and they are not inclined to help him. That is, I am not guessing.
Concur
I'm
with
telling
that statement. I concur with that.
Once again, Stephen A. Smith and Brian Windhorst know something behind the scenes. They spoke to a couple of these owners. They know for sure. But once again, in this year's All-Star game, LeBron James, the way he showed up and announced last minute that he was not even playing, even the way he took the All-Star team photos, just not in uniform, all that is playing Cold War games with the NBA owners. So just a quick recap of the timeline. We have LeBron James in the 2024 All-Star game. He was spoken to by past legendary players on putting more of an effort, him and the other All-Stars. And as we've seen it play out, there was no effort put in by the players. Fast forward to January 16, 2025, Bloomberg News, which is one of the top business publications globally, announced that Maverick Carter, along with certain sovereign money, was going to formulate their own professional league, 6 teams for the men and 6 teams for the women. So now we're at the part of the segment where we're going to hear what took place just a few weeks later in the All-Star game, where Stephen A. Smith doubles down and let Kendrick Perkins know, based off of LeBron James's actions, that the owners are not feeling him. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
You trying to tell me you just realized minutes before, whatever it was, that you couldn't play? You know, you couldn't have said, listen, I don't feel like playing. I don't think I'm up to playing, and made sure to facilitate somebody else getting that roster spot and being there All-Star weekend. It clearly was selfish on the part of LeBron James, one of the greats. We understand it. Clearly selfish on his part, and it's not a good look either. It really, really isn't.
And guess what? It wasn't a decision that just came out of nowhere. This was a calculated decision. LeBron James knew that he wasn't playing when they announced that he was going to be an All-Star, and he did look selfish. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I get it. At the age of 40, his feet might be hurting, his ankles might be hurt, he might need the rest, but you don't do it that way. And in my personal opinion, this is just my opinion, nobody else's. I feel like that was a statement to Adam Silver and the rest of the league. At that point, when LeBron James does certain things to this nature, not putting on his jersey, being in the team photo in his street clothes, showing up to the All-Star weekend an hour before it starts to give that announcement, that was a statement. Now, what is he trying to say, or what is he trying to do to Adam Silver in the NBA? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I agree with both of you guys. It's not what you do, it's how he did it, and he handled that all wrong, and he definitely looked selfish.
Y'all both know this, all right? Molly, you should know this. Perk knows I'm telling this truth. Shannon, damn it, you in football, and you still know I'm telling this truth. If Commissioner David Stern was alive and he was still the commissioner, you know they wouldn't even try it. Never. It would have never happened. Having said that, quick question to you, Big Perk. When you say LeBron James knew in advance, and he did this on purpose, since you brought it up, Perk, could you tell the audience why you think he did it on purpose?
Now pay attention to the way Stephen A. Smith asked that question, because the way he asked it, he already knows the answer to that. He knows it has something to do with LeBron James trying to own an NBA team, and some of the sentiments he's getting behind the scenes about that exact thing. But let's see if Perkins picks it up.
I mean, listen, this wasn't just a sudden decision. LeBron James, this guy's like, when it comes down to routine and knowing what he's going to do, he's always on point.
But why do you think he didn't tell us, is what I'm asking you. Why do you think he handled it the way that he did? That's what I'm asking.
I mean, this LeBron James. LeBron James. This is what he do. This is what he do. You know it. You know it.
Okay. If LeBron James, regardless of his partners and stuff like that, if LeBron James, who obviously deserves to be an owner in this league someday, Shannon, Big Perk, Molly, if he doesn't get it, look at moments like this as to why that is. You depart from Cleveland to Miami, the way you handled it. You spoke up against the play-in, the way you handled it. There's certain things in terms of player empowerment, the way you handled it. Yesterday, the way he handled it. Make no mistake, fair or unfair, folks are going to remember that. Mark my words.
Now, interesting dynamic with Stephen A. Smith. He was in a very similar situation to LeBron. You could almost say, as far as the morning time with First Take, he kind of built up ESPN to what it is right now, with the hot takes going viral, just sort of the blueprint that every other sportscaster, whether on TV or just online, they're trying to imitate some of the energies that come from that show. But even though Stephen A. Smith kind of built up ESPN as far as content around just the sports broadcast, he was in a very similar fight. He was trying to become the highest paid person on the network while at the same time showing his value. Even though he built it up throughout all these years, he still had to maintain a certain value. So he went out on his own. Now he has his own podcast, he has his own media outlet, and he sort of leveraged that to maintain his status on ESPN as one of the highest paid and most valuable people on the network. And LeBron James is in a similar fight in a way. Even throughout all these years, him just becoming one of the main headlining, just polarizing athletes in the league. It built things up where they're able to cash in on that television revenue, and it increases every single, I would say, 10 years that he's been in the league. But to get the equity stake, it's a different level of just conversation and just finesse. And Stephen A. once again stands 10 toes down on just alluding that the owners behind the scenes are letting them know they're feeling a kind of way about LeBron. And it will affect his chances of ownership. But at the same time, we have to understand the landscape of today with the technology, the way other countries are just tossing money and trying to start leagues of their own. LeBron James still has leverage in a way. The NBA does not want all that cultural capital that they invested into LeBron, marketing him as being the face of the league. They don't want all that cachet to go overseas and formulate a different league that in a way fans could still tune into, especially if it ends up streaming on platforms like Netflix.
And the commitment to excellence that he has clearly had in being in considerable shape and conditioning to be as phenomenally great as he has been in his entire career, being number 2 on the Mount Rushmore of basketball, in my eyes behind everybody but ahead of everybody rather, but Michael Jordan. But he's the same LeBron James that decided to take his talents from Cleveland to South Beach. And former Cleveland Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert had to find out on the news like everybody else. He's the same LeBron James that I personally will contest has ruined the slam dunk contest and arguably All-Star Weekend. You got people, once upon a time, it was Jordan, it was David Thompson before him, the Connie Hawkins, the Julius Irvins of the world, ultimately the Vince Carters and the Tracy McGrady's and the Kobe Bryants of the world. All stars with an aerial assault to their game participated in the slam dunk contest until LeBron James decided not to be one of those dudes. He wanted to use layup lines prior to games to do all of that, teasing the NBA and its fan base into salivating for him and clamoring for him to be a participant in the slam dunk contest, and he never did it. And then last year happened. You might not remember this. Dr. J. Julius Erving, Larry Bird, guys like that walk in and they want to talk to LeBron James. And when they want to talk to LeBron James, they want to talk to the team, the NBA All-Star team. And LeBron James obviously was one of those guys. And they wanted to talk to them about taking it seriously and putting forth a decent effort and going out there and competing for the fans. And the NBA thought that those guys reached those all-stars inside their soul until they saw LeBron James give the players a side eye. And once that happened, they went out there and embarrassingly allowed nearly 400 points to be scored, playing no defense whatsoever. And what's inexcusable about it, ladies and gentlemen, is that when you are working out in the summertime, playing pickup basketball with your contemporaries, you play harder than these guys play on All-Star Weekend. And they know it. They have ruined All-Star Weekend. I want no parts of All-Star Weekend because of what they've done to the game. The three-point shooting contest is the only contest worth watching. The slam dunk contest ain't worth watching. The new rules that have been implemented in order to try something new and different and make it more competitive, it wouldn't be necessary if you went out there and played with a shred of effort. But they didn't care. And when they look to leaders, just the same way everybody looked at LeBron when it came to playing in the bubble during COVID. Like Patrick Beverly has said back then, let us all stop fronting. Let's stop BSing. We all gonna do what LeBron does. We all gonna do what LeBron wants us to do. We all know it. That's what he said, because LeBron was that kind of leader. And so that kind of impactful individual can go a long way towards doing things where you don't have to worry about load management as much. You're not looking for your next deal the second you sign this deal and all of that other nuance, all those other nuances that come with it. People look at LeBron James. Fear or not, he's to blame in a lot of those owners' eyes. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. I ain't guessing. I'm telling you what I know.
Once again, when you hear Stephen A. Smith speak like this, he is speaking for the owners. Stephen A. is a company man. You see, with him becoming the highest paid guy on ESPN, it's not just about the sweat equity that he's put in over the last 15 plus years. It's also about the sacrifices that he was also able to make to help out the company that he works for. He talked about taking pay cuts during the pandemic, helping other people on his team as far as salary, doing things outside of the scope of his job in order to support the network. And again, today's landscape is very interesting because the way the technology has empowered guys like Stephen A. Smith to be able to go out on his own and land a deal from Sirius XM, and also LeBron James being able to go out on his own, because make no mistake about it, the way he's in shape, he could end up playing for a league out in the Middle East. And the way they're giving out money, he's going to be able to recruit at least some players with some name recognition that was built up by the NBA. See, the NBA does not want the players that they promoted, those marketing dollars for those guys, to be used by another league. They just picked up all that free advertisement, all that free sweat equity that the NBA put into that player, just becoming that worldwide figure. And that's something that Ice Cube has spoke on with his Big Three league, that the NBA felt a kind of way that guys like Julius Erving and other notable players that they marketed, all of a sudden Ice Cube was picking up the scraps and just getting all that free marketing and promotion for his league. The technology of today makes for interesting times because, once again, LeBron James, just like Stephen A. Smith, they can go out on their own and they can broadcast to anyone around the world, whether it be Netflix, YouTube, etc. The technology is there to gain a worldwide audience from basically any location in the world.
And because that's the reality, when it comes time for him to want to be an owner, and they get to say yay or nay, and there are, even when there are other comparable offers on the table, who's to say they got to pick LeBron James when they can find somebody else? Particularly in this day and age of hedge funds, private equity, etc., when they can pick somebody else. Now, that's not to rule out it being impossible, because all of us should be demanding that LeBron James, if he wants to become an owner and he has the assets and resources necessary to have equity in an NBA franchise, he should be allowed to do that. He's done too much for the game for you not to do that for him. But some of the owners feel otherwise. And when it's time for him to get his comeuppance in any way they can deliver it to him, chances are some of them will. I'm telling you what I know. So when you saw this story about a 5-5 team and LeBron James has nothing to do with this, what Maverick Carter does, that's bad enough for them. Because even though it's not a threat, how dare you support anything that would compromise our bottom line? That's how they'll think.
And how dare you take all those marketing dollars we put into you to make you that global figure and give it to someone else? That's another thing that they can't stand.
And it doesn't even have to be accurate. It'll just be an excuse to have negative feelings towards LeBron, because some owners look for it anyway. Some executives for other teams look for it anyway.
And that's a flaw with a lot of, I don't want to just relate this to the NBA, but a lot of corporations, it's pretty much a flaw that they have with their workers. They don't want you to be too intelligent. They just want you to be intelligent enough for the job at the moment and to benefit the company. But they don't want you to be too resourceful, too crafty. And LeBron James, once again, he has taken the blueprint from guys like Magic Johnson, Julius Erving, Michael Jordan. He's taken those blueprints and just gone to a whole other stratosphere.
He is not the most liked dude in the world. Not in NBA circles. That's just a fact. I'm not saying he did anything wrong. I'm not blaming him. I'm just telling you there are people in very powerful positions associated with the NBA who feel otherwise. I'm not guessing.
And that's because he's a threat. Once again, this is exactly where LeBron James is the GOAT of. Right here. The business side of the game. This is where he is the GOAT of. If you're going to judge LeBron James' GOAT status, to say his greatness is just basketball is disrespectful. This supersedes anything a basketball player can do in the court. LeBron James, in a way, is making sure that the next person who's the face of the league on his level ends up retiring, owning a team, or even being part owner of a different league. That's the standard LeBron James is setting.
I'm telling you what I know. So it would behoove LeBron, if he wants ownership down the line, to try and play nice with some people just to get things done so he can be the owner of an NBA team. I'm just saying. It's just a suggestion.
One thing Stephen A. Smith should consider is what happens when owning an NBA team is no longer the pinnacle. Once again, with that sovereign money coming into play, and make no mistake about it, those pockets are deeper than anything the NBA could ever imagine. What happens when those sovereign dollars mix in with someone with the cultural cachet of a LeBron James and also the technology of something like Netflix or even YouTube to a degree? And the NBA is already tapped into this. As right before we're going to hear from Adam Silver, we're first going to lock in with Derek Fisher, as he himself has a lot of experience with the executive side of being in the NBA, as well as some of their global ambitions, as he was one of the ambassadors when they went to the Middle East. He gave great insights to some of the ambitions of the league, as well as them trying to tap into that sovereign money, that endless amount of sovereign money. Like I said, this play is much bigger than just basketball. Some of the countries with deep pockets are trying to rebrand themselves globally, and they're looking for people as well as entities with a lot of cultural cachet that will rebrand the image of their country. You guys check out Derek Fisher as he spoke on some of these dynamics, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
I'm not an employee of the NBA, but for the last 2 to 3 years, I've served as one of the senior directors for the basketball portion of the draft combine. And the NBA has these barnstorming trips abroad to grow the game, which is how I ended up in Abu Dhabi making the trip. We had some anxiety, never having been to the region. How are they going to treat women? Do women have to bow their heads, look down, not make eye contact?
That right there is part of the rebranding. Those countries want to change that image, that thought, that first thought in your head. Oh, when I travel there, what if this and that? I heard this and that. They want to change people's thought processes around the world, and they have the deep pockets to make that happen.
You have to wear the traditional garb, but it was a very normal daily experience. In terms of the game and the fans and the people, it was very much like a game at home. Fans with jerseys on of the teams that they love to support. It was the Celtics versus the Nuggets, so there were a lot of Celtics fans there, which was not necessarily easy for me to sit through the whole time. But to me, what stood out was the amount of young people that got a chance to experience NBA basketball. It's not just about bringing a basketball game. There are longer-term visions and plans. There is a strong belief, as evidenced in the United States and other markets, like you can build entire downtown communities around sport. It's a socio-economic growth engine like no other.
Once again, like I said, there's a lot of geopolitics that's into play in this story. And with geopolitics come a lot of money. Make no mistake about that.
The NBA is continuing to test and focus group what NBA basketball would be like in countries outside of the United States. Who are the right partners from a marketing perspective and investment perspective? What is the fan base like? What are people reacting to? Who bought tickets? Who downloaded the NBA app? The NBA is also reminding people or introducing people to why the game of basketball is so special. Basketball represents what America has historically been, right? Like so many men and women, girls and boys on the court from all walks of life. Some that didn't know where they were going to eat when they were 12 years old. Some that were homeless. Some that went to private school. Some that went to public school. It's all universal. And then, of course, the background of guys, best players in the world are from France and Serbia and Slovenia and all these global places. And so little kids in Abu Dhabi can dream to be there one day.
AKA, sports is the perfect marketing tool. Man, and LeBron James and Maverick Carter, they have an opportunity to tap into that. So that's why I alluded to before in the segment, Stephen A. Smith saying NBA ownership is the pinnacle for a guy like LeBron. And when you see dynamics that are playing out globally like this, how does the NBA react when one of their mega stars will have this kind of opportunity? These dynamics have never been presented before. And history has shown us the NBA does not react well to competition. They either try to squeeze you out or they try to buy you out.
It will be important not to build it in a way where it's constantly being compared to the NBA. We don't necessarily need a 20,000 seat arena for an NBA Abu Dhabi, an NBA Africa. Like, create a different experience for fans, create a more intimate environment, be as innovative as possible so the experience is unique, but you still understand it's NBA basketball.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the beautiful thing. Any NBA exhibition games or even regular season games that are being played out there, it doesn't have to be perfect. The interests are already there. The technology supports it. And the NBA, as well as LeBron James, most importantly, have the cultural cachet that they need. Once again, the Qatar World Cup was proof of concept that you could put on a massive global event in the Middle East and it be successful. So now fast forward into March 27th, just a few weeks later after that All-Star game, Adam Silver sat down and did a presser with one of FIBA's top officials, and they have announced that they're going ahead and doing a European-style league in some of the top cities in Europe, like Berlin, Paris, maybe Madrid. So the NBA is locked in and establishing a relationship with FIBA to not only gain access to certain talents across Europe, but to also establish a foothold down there. And it's going to open up a lot of different doors, because with some of the struggles the NBA is having with the AAU circuit and the youth leagues throughout the United States being so showcase driven, and also with the NIL deals among the college amateur circuit just being kind of all over the place, this may become a new avenue for a lot of youths in the United States who could become professionals starting at the age of 12, 13, 14 years old to start playing for some of these European clubs, even at a youth level. And the reason why I say this might be a great opportunity is because now with the NBA having an association with these European leagues, kids may see a better path forward into getting into the NBA, because now the scouts are going to be more connected, the coaches are going to be more connected. It's almost going to be, in a way, very similar to soccer globally, where players normally get transferred from team to team across the globe. So there's a lot of different dynamics here at play, but just also keep in mind that Maverick Carter just a couple months earlier announced that he and some of the sovereign money in the Middle East was going to formulate their own league. So there's a lot of Cold War games being played, but right here we're going to check out Adam Silver in the presser along with one of FIBA's top officials and explain how all this culminated together, and also what does this mean going forward. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
So, as you all know, we just concluded 2 days of our Board of Governors meetings, but one of the central topics was opportunities that we've been looking at to continue to develop basketball in Europe. And I'm particularly pleased today, along with my colleague Andreas, to announce that we're ready to go to the next stage, and that is to explore a potential league in Europe with FIBA as our partners. Roughly 15% of the players in the NBA right now are from Europe. 5 out of the last 6 of our MVPs have been European, but there's a huge gap, I think, between the amount of interest in the sport and the development as in terms of how we operate a league here in North America. I mean, it's something that is not a new discussion between the NBA and FIBA. Certainly my predecessor, David Stern, along with your predecessors, Boris Stankovic and Patrick Baumann, had discussions around potential opportunities in Europe literally for decades. But we feel now is the time to move to that next stage. And
for FIBA, the growth of the game internationally is based on 2 pillars: very strong national team competitions and very strong club competitions. And coming out of the most successful World Cup and Olympics ever, we believe it is the right timing that we also take the next step for club basketball. It is certainly looking around the world, of course, here in North America, the NBA is most popular and more commercially successful than ever. This is credit to you, Adam, to your team, and the 30 owners and their teams.
And the NBA is going to bring in some of that commercial success to these European teams. And there's a lot of opportunity for them because, once again, Netflix is looking for content. So are a few of these other streaming platforms that the NBA has collaborated with, like Peacock and Paramount, and even Amazon to a degree. So there's a lot of opportunities. It's almost like the technology just meets them at a perfect timing.
At the same time, we see national leagues, national championships around the world growing very well in a very good pace, both in terms of commercial expansion as well as talent development. Before I get to Europe, you see Japan, you see Australia, you see our joint project in Africa having a significant positive impact on the continent, and several national championships in Europe are doing very, very well. On the international level, meaning we call international the leagues that involve more than one country, clubs from more than one country, we have been running, FIBA has been running competitions for almost 7 decades, since 1957-58 season. And certainly we have seen great product, we have seen great players, but at the same time, we have come to the conclusion that the popularity of the sport and the success that we've had with the national team competitions is not matched by a fan interest and a commercial impact commensurate to that success. So it's natural for us as FIBA, having international club competitions as one of the 3 strategic priorities, to discuss with all our stakeholders, and one of our 2 most important ones, it's the NBA.
Interesting. I did not know the NBA was one of their stakeholders. Interesting. But the international competitions, make no mistake about it, it's going to eventually trickle down into the NBA. That's what they really want to do, imitate sort of a Champions League of basketball. You could have Luka and the Lakers take on a top performing team from Spain. So that'll be like another tournament on top of the in-season tournament, or they might end up getting rid of that and just do club tournaments from different countries, the best of the best, facing off in a 1 or 2 month tournament.
Together with the IOC, the 2 key institutional partners of FIBA. And as Adam said, these are not new discussions. They have been going on. Another element that has helped over the last years, and that is that the NBA is represented on the FIBA board. And I would like to thank Deputy Commissioner and COO Mark Tatum, who's been 11 years now on the FIBA board and on the reduced board, the FIBA executive, and who understands very well our perspective, our primarily developmental perspective for the growth of the game. So I'm also pleased, therefore, to announce that further to the recent FIBA Executive Committee meeting, we have unanimous support to take the next step together with the NBA in the discussions for the creation of such a league.
It's crazy because the NBA has the marketing, the sort of business side on point, the commercialization of the sport. It's A1. But the European side, they don't have that, but they have the development, the skills. That's on point. So I'm wondering if these two worlds are ready to collaborate. And when they do, it's actually going to be better for youth sports in America. Somebody with the talent level of LeBron James or even a guy like Cooper Flag, they could have been professionals since they was 12, 13 years old, being developed in a league out in Europe because that same league has NBA connections. So coaches are going to be talking to each other, scouts, everybody's really going to be a phone call away from just kind of almost being interconnected in a way, now that the world is flat, especially with the internet.
It is important for FIBA and its members to emphasize that the plan currently being reviewed and which we're still exploring would be compatible with what FIBA and its members, federations and leagues have been doing on the continent, both in terms of connection to the Basketball Champions League and to the national leagues, harmonization with the FIBA calendar, and of course, an extremely important component of this is the support to the development of our members, as well as the ones that we do jointly with the NBA, such as the BWB, the Basketball Without Borders, for the development of players, coaches, and referees in the continent. So thank you, Adam. Thank you also to the Board of Governors, broadening and strengthening what is, and I can tell you coming back from Greece and the IOC session, what is a unique relationship between a North American professional league and an international federation. Thank you.
It's early days, so literally nothing has been agreed upon yet. We're still in the modeling and I would say exploratory stage. One thing though we know is important is we want to honor the traditions of European basketball. There are some different rules. For example, it's a 40-minute game as opposed to a 48-minute game in the U.S. I think we would play in the current FIBA, but I would say European format. There's strong tradition around the game there. I think stylistically the game looks a bit different than the NBA game. I think those are all very important aspects to us. I think there's a tradition of open leagues in Europe. For Americans sort of aren't familiar with the concept. We play under what we would call a closed league. We have our 30 NBA teams. There's no potential relegation of teams. I'm sure I'm going to get a question about tanking later. Maybe I wish there was.
Once again, Adam Silver, he loves that Champions League format. He wants the Lakers going up against a top team in Spain or a top team that performs out in France. They've been talking about this for a minute, and it looks like they're starting to execute on that plan.
But in Europe, on the other hand, there's an open system. Now, despite there being an open system, there are certain clubs that are perennially playing in those tournaments or in that club competition. And I think given the opportunity to design a league from scratch, one of the things we're looking at is what are the best elements we can take of both systems. So while I think we want a sense of permanence for some clubs, because from an American standpoint, we would say that incentivizes incentives, whether incentives to build new arenas, incentives to build brands, incentives to build new clubs. That's very important. On the other hand, I love that sense of hope that you see in Europe. And as I said, relegation would solve a lot of our problems. I'm just kidding. But so those are the kinds of things we're exploring. And I just further add, so many changes are happening in media right now. Obviously, in our new media deals, which we're entering into next year, streaming plays a huge part of that. And as I've said before, streaming isn't just a question of taking games that were on traditional media, call it broadcast or cable, and putting them on a streaming service. It affords all kinds of new opportunities to produce games in new and different ways.
Facts. Oh my God, the opportunities are almost endless. I mean, just imagine the next media deal with the NBA having additions globally. So now they introduced a new Champions Cup, where it's multiple teams in France, Germany, Spain that's playing against NBA teams. So that would make their next TV deal even bigger. So it's almost like the NBA now is creating a very similar universe like Grand Theft Auto, like their game online. There's new missions, there's new characters. The possibilities of what that game could be are endless. And the NBA, in a way, is kind of opening up their own metaverse. Gone are the days of the league just being closed where everyone's just playing 82 games to compete for NBA title in June. Now we're entering a world where the NBA is almost going to become a universe where there's multiple titles on the line. Games are going to be broadcast from different sides of the world. It's going to be available to everybody to see, perhaps on Netflix, on YouTube, etc. So the NBA is definitely headed towards creating their own metaverse.
Maybe becomes particularly relevant in Europe. Multiple languages, dialects, different opportunities. We did talk about our board, incidentally, with this today, and we can talk about that more later. And again, whether that's gaming, yes, betting, consumer sales, user-generated content. So one of the things I'm fascinated in exploring is, to the extent we have the ability to create a league from scratch, how would we do things differently based on 79 years of learning in the NBA and based on decades of learning for FIBA in terms of how they see as the best way to operate a league?
The only other element perhaps that I need to say from a European or international perspective is there is no NCAA.
That is a beautiful thing. When it comes to professional basketball, no NCAA is a beautiful thing. Let them have their own system, but the top of the top, the best of the best, could possibly now go professional at a younger age in a different country. And that will allow a pathway for those top players to actually get into a system where them thinking about getting paid is an afterthought. They're a professional, so everything in accordance to their training, their payments, everything is almost like a job. They don't have to jump through any type of loopholes or deal with boosters, etc. Because with NIL just being so wide open, it's almost like the Wild West. Just anything is going down over there, and they're constantly changing the rules, and they're constantly trying to regulate how much can players actually make. It's a strange dance they're doing over there. It's almost like they want to be considered professional because guys are getting paid, but they want to put amateur restrictions on the players. It's a strange thing.
In Europe, the production of players happens in the clubs, and there is a pyramidal system of sport. And that means that the road of hope, as Adam said, or this dream of developing and playing against the best, is part of our mission as well.
And that's what the American youth players need. The guys in AAU, the top players, they need to go through the clubs, because nothing is based off of the player's age. It's based off of skills. That's why Luka, I believe at age 15 or even 16, 17, he was already playing with players way older than him, because it's really based off of skills. And low-key, the NCAA is watching this movement very closely, because it just becomes another hindrance on them recruiting the very best of the best to get into that circuit.
A small parenthesis, this is what we did also, these two organizations, almost 35 years ago, saying that the best have to play against each other. And I do see an analogy in that, because while we understand the benefits of permanent structures and developing certain markets in a certain way, at the same time, the wider the pyramid is, the better developed the pyramid is. And that means the more clubs we have that are ready to invest in developing players, in winning their national league, in winning the BCL, and getting to the new league, the better it is for global basketball. Why? This morning we had the Eurobasket draw. 24 countries are playing, and that is only the final phase. World Cup, 32 countries play. We cannot limit ourselves in just a few countries. We have here, if I'm not mistaken, more than 60 Europeans playing the NBA, and they are coming from more than 25 countries. So our NCAA is the national championships and the second tier. So the interconnection between the two, this permeability that Adam described, is a big part of how the model could look. Now, in terms of the FIBA rules, I think Adam has covered that, and of course on the commercial aspect as well. This is, I believe, part of the discussions we're having right now. Our role as international federation is to unite as much as possible the basketball ecosystem. We have tried that in the past, we are trying it now, and we will continue trying it. We're conducting meetings, conducting bilaterals with our stakeholders, including our top clubs. I've tried, and I think I've managed to some extent to convince, especially during the difficult COVID times, that FIBA is here for everyone. And we want our top tier clubs to make more money, to become sustainable, because the majority of them are not, and also to motivate the rest of the ecosystem to play against them and produce players. And during that process of FIBA's basically doing its job, whenever we've called the NBA was there, ready to help, ready to participate in meetings, ready to put its, no doubt, business acumen, but also its very high level know-how of how you run a league and you deal with a different ecosystem. So we will continue on that same path.
So number one, yes, we're looking at the existing arena infrastructure in Europe, although at the same time I'd say part of the opportunity here is to potentially build more state-of-the-art basketball-style arenas in Europe. I mean, that's where we see an opportunity in terms of incentivizing partners, potential team owners, maybe existing clubs to come in, modernize facilities or build new facilities. In addition, we are of course looking at size of cities. Certain European cities, obviously are well known in the United States, are media capitals of industry. Those are things we're looking at. But lastly, I would also say there are some hotbeds of basketball as well in Europe. I think my Greek friend can speak to the enormous enthusiasm about the sport in that country, in particular cities. Southern Europe, tremendous interest in our sport. So I think the factors you mentioned all become very relevant here.
Okay. You can tell they've been collecting data. He says Southern Europe has a huge interest in our sport. Yeah, this is something just like Derek Fisher said earlier in the segment. They've been doing focus groups on this for years.
In order for us to, in essence, green light moving forward on this league, it would not require deals in place, but because there's always risk with any new venture. But it will require us, and Mark Tatum leading those efforts on behalf of the NBA, creating a fully developed business plan, where we have dealt with all potential stakeholders, understand the potential value for these franchises, have a better sense in the media market of what the value of these games would be. As I mentioned earlier, other commercial partners, what their level of interest may be. I mean, at least we have a blueprint in terms of what we do in the NBA. At the same time, also recognize and in part why a partner like FIBA is so important, that there are fundamental differences in European basketball and European sport generally and how fans approach it. And as I said, we're hoping for important that there are fundamental differences in European basketball and European sport generally and how fans approach it. And as I said, we're hoping for a merger of those two worlds. But I think once we're able to concretize a plan in that way, I can't speak for Andreas's board, but in terms of the NBA, we have a committee process. We'd be working with some committees here, but ultimately it would require a vote of our board to move forward. The initial thought is that we would have a 16-team league potentially, and this is still very preliminary, maybe 12 permanent clubs and 4 clubs that would be in a position to play in on a yearly basis. But that's very much subject to change, and that's something we're just digging into now. As to the composition of existing clubs, that's ongoing discussion. I think, one, we want to better test the level of interest of existing clubs. In some cases, what comes with those existing clubs are huge global brands in some cases those brands built through global soccer, not basketball, but we recognize there's a tremendous depth of interest in people rooting for those clubs. So that becomes very relevant as well. And then, we also want to test the marketplace. Because I think there where in virtually every major European city, you have basketball ecosystems, but then the question is there may be others who, given the opportunity to participate, may raise their hands and say, I would be interested in potentially owning a club in that market, so we want to look at that as well.
So we will continue having conversations with the clubs that play in a national league only, and they're interested, that play in the BCL and they're interested, or they're playing in EuroLeague and they're also interested. So we're going to have a full range of discussions, and I want to be clear about the openness of our position, at least speaking for FIBA right now, on these discussions. And this is very important that we are having these conversations for our fans and for the development and growth of our sport. This does not mean that this happens to the detriment of other stakeholders. It's actually trying to raise the tide for everyone in European basketball.
One thing I want to add, and for those who are sitting here or watching this and thinking, why all the fanfare around exploration of a league and not the announcement of a league? And in part, it's the response to your question, which is we want to have very open and direct conversations with existing stakeholders and not have backroom conversations. And it was our feeling if we announced our intentions, then we could openly discuss with existing stakeholders, existing clubs, what their level of interest is, and the community would know that in terms of the FIBA community as well. And we thought that was a healthier way to go about it. We are not interested in operating a league that has no system of control in terms of competition, in terms of ultimate compensation paid to the players. I mean, we have a salary system in the NBA, but because it's a revenue sharing system with the league, even though it's a capped system, as a function of its revenue sharing, there are enormous rewards for the players. I think likely the highest paid players in the world in any sport. So it's something we're exploring, but FIBA is obviously very helpful there. Lots of lawyers around the NBA, learning European systems, and understanding there's real complexity there, but it may require a different approach than the way we can collectively bargain a salary system in the United States. But still, we would want, I think that's one of the expertise that we bring to the potential new league, a system where every team, regardless of the market size even in Europe, is in a position to compete and compete on as close to a level of the playing field as possible. In terms of existing NBA owners, there's currently a rule in the NBA that you can only own one basketball club. At least it's our contemplation now that NBA owners would participate as a collective, as owners in the league, but not owners of individual clubs.
We do three things as the world governing body. We organize competitions to generate revenues to develop the sport, but at the same time we regulate a lot of the international activity in the sport. And some of the elements we regulate, especially the cross-country transfers, because if you transfer from one team in the NBA to another team in the NBA, that is under Adam's purview. But if you transfer from the NBA into a FIBA club, that comes under a different purview, and the same if you transfer from one country in Europe to another. We do see there our role, and that's why we're really excited on how the International Federation, with its different roles, can support this potential project, because there is no way in an international setup to put rules in place of that sort that Adam described without the regulatory backing of the international body in order to really have the control that Adam described. So we do have also in that respect, not only a role, but a contribution to make, which will help us have better competition and better grow the sport in Europe.
All right, so there it is. You know, in a way, right now, they're still in the testing phases, going through different parts of those regions where they're seeing if there's enough interest. But the overall structure is there. The commercialization on the NBA side, and as well as the development on the FIBA side, it's going to be a great partnership. But within those crevices, there are a few things left to be answered. As far as, could American players now go professional for some of these clubs that's going to have an affiliation with the NBA in this new league? This could be a brand new path forward for some of the top prospects in the amateur circuit here in the States, for kids to finally go professional at a young age. But these are interesting dynamics globally. There's a lot more breathing room due to the advancements in technology as far as streaming, and also the star power of individual players. A guy like LeBron, and let's say Magic Johnson back in the day when he went out to Sweden, if he has some of the tools that are available today, like Netflix in the Middle East from a geopolitical stance, just trying to market their region in a different light and willing to spend money on sports, as we've seen from the World Cup. So there's a lot of opportunity, not only for the NBA to open up their league, but also for a guy like LeBron James to take all that cachet and mix it in with sovereign money to perhaps form a league that he can put on the global stage. So the possibilities are endless, not only for the leagues, but for the individual entities. But we'll see how it plays out. Until next time, fellas, stay safe. Peace.